Sean Roberts, Heather Burnside, Lucas Strain, live on the Iowa Sports Radio Network.
Statewide now.
Feel good? Statewide?
Better introduce yourself.
Yeah. Sean Roberts. Are we going to have to do the whole, reintroduce ourselves, who we are?
We probably should for a while.
How long we've been here, how long I've been in radio, all that stuff.
Well, we could... It would be nice to say.
Because we're introducing ourselves into a whole new audience.
It's Sean Roberts, Heather Burnside, Lucas Strain behind the glass on the ones and twos. And yeah, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about your background? We'll go around the table. Trent Condon still hanging out with us as well.
What's
Trent, longtime Des Moines sports radio guy as well.
Yeah. Are you saying I'm old? I'm pretty old.
But
you're younger than me.
Well, okay.
Of all the people,
I didn't bring it up.
I know, but of all the people in this room that might be calling you old, I'm not one of them.
So TC, it's funny because this kind of happened about 10 minutes before your guys' show started. Mm-hmm. And something that, we used to do a little bit with when Murph and Andy were here. We would come in the last 5 minutes and kind of talk. But I was like, man, I feel like we could have a little bit more fun with that. We could have a little bit more conversation with that, especially when things are happening around the entire state or around the country when it comes to sports. So whether it's you and Ken or both of you here in the studio.
And Ken said he'd be here today, but he had something else going on today.
I had a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
So I figured let's do some crosstalk, do a little transition talk to start the show. And
are you already using radio lingo? Let's stay in here for some crosstalk.
A little crosstalk.
No, I can if you want me to get into full radio voice, I can
jam.
do that. But no, so TC and Ken are going to join us usually for the first segment. Obviously, there'll be some things if we're on location somewhere, something like that, it might not work as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun. But yes, my name is Sean Roberts. I've been on KXNO now since 2014. Which is now
10 years.
Yeah, so sports radio for 10 years now, which is now the Iowa Sports Radio Network. And this is a super exciting day. It's been a very a lot of things happening type day.
Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy type day. But no, this is awesome. It's incredible for not only us and the opportunity that we have to talk sports, have some fun, and bring what we've been able to accomplish here throughout the entire state. But yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm sure we can get into more where I'm from and all that stuff later on. But
I'm Heather Burnside. I started my career as a sports anchor, WHO TV, quite a while ago.
Not going to put a year on that one?
Yeah, no, it was in the 90s. I'll just put it that way. It was in the 90s. After WHO TV, I ended up at ESPN for a couple of years as a producer for Sports Center. Moved back to Des Moines because it turns out Connecticut, not all that great. What you've heard about Bristol, Connecticut all those years is kind of true. Not the greatest place on earth to live. So I moved back to Iowa, did radio at different music stations around Des Moines, and ended up here on KXNO doing a sports talk in 2015. I still do a music station. You can hear me on 100.3 The Bus as well.
Tired
but
of
yeah,
driving.
I've been here for 9 years. Couldn't be happier to be able to finally combine my love of radio and my love of sports together. And then, of course, we have Lucas Strain, by far the youngest member.
Yeah, I'd say
youngest on-air guy on KXNO, because you're how far?
It's between me and Justin Miller for the youngest competition. I think Justin's just a little bit older than I am. I am 23 years old. I have been working at KXNO for a little less than a year. We're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary pretty quickly.
We'll throw a party in the studio for you.
It's not
and
a
you
day.
graduated from Iowa in May of last year?
Yes, I graduated from the University of Iowa in 2023.
I'm an Iowa State graduate from many years ago. Sean went to Grandview here in town.
That's right, baby.
I am also a local kid since we're stationed out of Des Moines. I also graduated from Urbandale High School in 2019. Went out east to Iowa City. Was a Hawkeye for 4 years. Loved every minute of it. And now I'm back here. And I'm working in radio.
Season ticket holder for the Hawks.
Season ticket holder. Haven't missed a home Iowa football game since I think my sophomore year of high school.
It'll go over well with all our new listeners over on the eastern part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
TC, how long have you been in radio now, sports radio?
We are over 2 decades now. Started in 2003 up in Cedar Falls at the
Fall or
sports
spring?
station.
Fall or spring of 03?
Oh, what it would have been? It would have been fall. Yeah, it was leading right into football season. So
I was a freshman in high school.
you are young. I am not so young. You got me there. So yeah, started there. I'm excited to be back. And one thing, I talk about, and I think this is going to be new for you guys as well, because you've only been in Central Iowa on the airwaves. Is Eastern Iowa's different, and Sioux City's different. My wife's from Sioux City. The first time I went there, baffled about the number of Cornhusker fans that we have out there. It's different.
So they're not going to like my Nebraska jokes.
Oh, well, some of them will, and plenty of Hawkeye fans. Now, still the majority, I maintain, from what I have seen, it's still Iowa's number one there, Nebraska very close number two, and then Morningside and Briarcliff and South Dakota State, North Dakota State, and then Iowa State. You do not see much Cyclone stuff up there in the Sioux City, in the Siouxland area, at least that I have seen in the past. But Eastern Iowa is a different animal, and this is going to be fun for you guys, I think, to see a little bit about the different markets and what they're like, because Ken doesn't understand. Iowa State is a monster here. It is huge. There is nothing that compares to it in Central Iowa. That's not the case in Eastern Iowa. It just isn't at the same level. The back and forth that we see is completely different outside of the Central Iowa border.
That surprises me. And so then who is it then, Trent?
It depends on where you are. It really does. We know Western Iowa, it's Iowa, Nebraska. Omaha, Council Bluffs, Sioux City, that's different. Where I grew up, it wasn't Iowa State, even though Ames was actually closer than Iowa City. Now we're also talking about growing up in the 80s when Iowa State football was not good. But there, for me, it was Minnesota. That was my biggest rival. My family that lives in Dubuque, it's Iowa, Wisconsin. Quad Cities, it's Iowa, Illinois. And then when you get to Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, it's kind of where you're from. And if it isn't, it's the flavor of the day, or the team that you despise the most, or maybe it is for them, Michigan, or you have a hatred of Nebraska because of the last decade. Whatever it is, it's just different there. And when you get to these different aspects of the state, the pockets are different wherever you go.
I see. Yeah, to me, it's okay. So it's almost like how I can relate to what you were just talking about is being. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, so growing up, and I'm a White Sox fan. But growing up,
sorry,
but growing up,
20 in a row now.
Sox Cubs is a massive deal back home, right? Like it is a massive deal.
Turns out not so much here.
But when I
Trent.
came out
we're
here,
more like Cubs Cardinals.
Yeah, and so
keep it in the division.
So for me, it's always been fun over the last 10 years when that series happens. I'm like, man, this is a massive deal back home. You can have all the Cub fans here like, oh, no one cares about it. I'm like, okay, but where it's actually being played, it is a massive deal. So maybe to the Cyhawk game here, because man, when Cyhawk week happens here, it takes over. It is wall-to-wall coverage essentially, right?
Yes.
So it's good to know though that on the eastern part of the state, our new affiliates over there that. Hey, maybe, careful on the Iowa State stuff a little bit here,
Well, and another component, and you bring up the baseball side, and I see this, so I'm a Twins fan, and I see this where the divisiveness with Twins fans and online and just in general, my friends that still live up in Minneapolis, they say that the Milwaukee series for baseball is the biggest one every year. I have no animosity to the Brewers. I don't care because, A, it wasn't even a rivalry growing up. It's morphed into that because of interleague play and what that turned into. But I have nothing. For me, it's the White Sox. That's who I like to beat as a Twins fan.
It's funny, though, TC, because last week Lucas and I were on our way back from Minnesota. We were in Vikings training camp. And we were listening to K-Fan on the way back home. And they were talking about how the Brewers and Twins is like when it comes to rivalries with the Twins in baseball, because the Twins are getting ready to take on the Sox or something like that. They were talking about it. And they're like, it's the Brewers.
Yeah.
I'm going, Brewers? What?
And even as a fan, I have that reaction too. But for people that are in the city, because you have a lot of the transplants, you have a lot of people that you're on the border there. You have so many Wisconsinites and back and forth and people that are in both cities that it leads to that. But for a guy that just grew up in North Iowa and all I cared about was the Twins, and there really wasn't that kind of rivalry. It's different. And I think you guys are going to see the same thing here as it pertains to the college landscape on that side of the state.
284-5966. That is our number to call. Keith wants to chime in. What's going on, Keith? Welcome to the Iowa Sports Radio Network.
Yeah. Am I the first caller on the new network? Oh, my God.
Well, on our show,
this show you are.
On your show. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm a Cyclone fan. And I've got friends who are Hawk fans in Cedar Rapids, in Iowa City. Great people. I host them when Iowa plays here, and and I'll be headed down there in a month for the big game there. Regarding Trent's philosophy, I'm thinking about 4 or 5 people, not anecdotal, I know, but they're not message board people or anything else. They're just real life fans. Their biggest game is the Iowa State game. They make no bones about it. And my biggest game is the Iowa game. Now, there is one difference to Trent's point, is the fact that with the Big 12 now, all of our border rivals are gone. Nebraska, Missouri, and then the 2 big name teams have just left. And whereas Iowa still has their border rivals, and we don't. So by default, Iowa's our big game. But in terms of my Hawkeye friends, the game that they most want to win, least want to lose, is the Iowa State game, and there's no question about it. And those are Cedar Rapids and Iowa City people.
Appreciate the phone call, Keith. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Keith.
Yep. Yeah, do I gotta put the area code now in the phone number?
I think people can figure that
Figure
out.
that out. 515.
Yeah. But you're right.
I got to start. You got to start thinking about this. And Troy tweets in. So listening to KXNO Drive, and it does sound like this change to being statewide will impact what they talk about. I don't think necessarily it's going to change what we talk about. I mean, we might add in a couple things here and there, but we're going to talk. I mean, we already talk about what's going on in the state, or what's going on with Iowa, what's going on with Iowa State, what's going on with UNI, what's going on with Drake, what's going on in the country.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see it changing too terribly much.
Or maybe
there
we'll
might
talk
be a few things that we end up changing a little bit, or adding to help our audience, our new audiences in Sioux City, in Cedar Rapids, in Davenport.
Probably not as much weather.
Yeah, maybe not as much. Although that brings up an excellent question. We've had some shows here that have been completely disrupted by weather.
Derailed.
And what happens? I mean, does that mean that we just keep going on?
I think so.
Okay, so we're not on the air.
That might be a phone call we need to make downstairs, right?
We're not on the air in
Wall-to-wall
market,
coverage.
in the market where the weather is happening, but we need to keep talking because while there's a tornado warning here in Des Moines, there isn't one in Sioux City.
You guys have been doing this for a very long time. And did you ever
It's
think...
code for we're old, Trent.
Well, no. Yeah. But did you ever think that this station would ever grow to being syndicated statewide?
Not just this station, but I always thought it was an idea that made a lot of sense. And where I got my start, it was a small, locally owned one, but you saw what was happening here in Des Moines. And for me, as an outsider at the time, I saw that and said, why can't that be across the state? Why? Because we hear these national shows. And I remember when I first heard sports radio, and just any time that the Hawkeyes were brought up, it was like a godsend. They just said their name in passing. And it was the greatest thing. And I've been listening to sports radio throughout the day in my office for 8 hours, and they mentioned the Hawkeyes once because they're playing Wisconsin this weekend in a top 25 matchup. That was it for 8 hours. And I was so excited about that. And then there's more local programming out there and those kind of things. And for the people in those markets that I think haven't been served at this level, it's something that I thought always made a lot of sense in our state.
Well, and let's face it, we've been talking about this here for a long time. So the fact that this day has finally arrived, let's rejoice.
I've been here 5.5 years.
Talking about it pretty much the whole time.
There was, I believe, my second meeting ever with the higher-ups at the time that was brought up.
Yeah.
Over 5.5 years ago.
Right. It's been a rumor around for a long time, too. Yeah. But I started here 9 years ago, and it was on a little, what was that, a 5,000-watt AM station?
AM station, yeah.
And yet, I've been on every radio station pretty much in Des Moines. I was on a couple of 100,000-watt, FM powerhouse radio stations, and yet I would get just as much feedback from people listening to this little AM station as I did any of those other radio stations. And I thought, this is kind of lightning in the bottle. Why? Just think if more people could hear it.
Yeah, right.
And of course, thanks to the iHeartRadio app, there were plenty of chances for people to at least find it on an app and start streaming it. But of course, a lot of people, at least at first, find their place or their radio home the old-fashioned way, which is on the air. So then, when we switched to an FM signal a couple of years ago, that helped grow the audience.
That was a game changer.
And now, and it's my understanding that the new Cedar Rapids station that's carrying us is an FM station that just flipped from music to all sports. So welcome. Sorry. We're not playing Linkin Park or whatever it was that you were listening to on that station. It's going to be a little bit of a transition for you.
You
I'm
might get
sure.
a little Taylor Swift talk, with Travis Kelce, but yeah, that you won't be hearing any music from Taylor Swift. But no, it is super cool, and I've had a lot of people reach out today after the news kind of broke this morning on the Morning Rush with Trav and Ross, and it's what you're going to get to is you're going to get a lot of different shows.
I always like to say it's all pizza, but they're three completely different pizzas. Ken and I, we're all meat, right? We're all sports. That's all we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sports and sports gambling. We don't do pop culture. We don't do anything really outside of that. We don't paint outside the lines. We just talk about sports, and that's what we're comfortable with. The morning show, if you haven't heard, tune in tomorrow, because that is a different kind of show.
and they pride themselves
They
on
do,
that.
absolutely. Ross and Travis do an incredible job. It's the kind of thing that each of the shows are so different and unique in what they do, and then having a pioneer like Heather in her role that she does, and hearing a woman talk about sports and local sports and being able to do that. It's all different. You love your sports. You love all kinds of things, but you also have a different kind of personality. And then we got the young blood here, which is a great thing, and we need the young blood.
Well, we got Lucas and then Justin in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a good variety.
Yeah.
And like we were just talking about, like all the shows are different. What you'll get with us is you'll get sports talk. We'll talk to we have guests coming up today, right? We have David Eichel, who covers the Hawkeyes. We have Travis Hines, who covers the Cyclones. When it gets into, we'll talk you and I and Drake football, but when it gets in the basketball season, we'll have all four covered. We will cover everything, but we'll also have fun. We'll talk about a wedding that I was at this weekend. We'll talk.
Troy says, so I'm listening to the drive, and it does sound like this change to statewide will impact what they talk about. And it's, Troy, it's kind of early. We're 17 minutes into this. We're kind of just explaining to everybody that's new to the audience what's going on. But, yeah, wait a little later in the show. I don't know that you're going to notice that much of a difference.
And really, I think out of everybody, I know you guys, TC, you guys shifted your time slot, but Heather and I are the ones that have gotten like the most drastic change, going from 2 to 6, and there's just a lot of stuff happening.
The extra hour, I will tell you, somebody that did 5 hours of shows a day for a long time, it's a lot. It's a lot. You have to use your time. You have to kind of figure things out. But you guys are pros. You guys got this. You're going to hit the ground running, and before you know it. But it's weird today. I've been in radio for 2 decades. I got those butterflies for the first time flipping on the mic at noon today. I haven't had those things in a long, long time.
You want to know why? One reason is that email they sent out.
Yes.
About all the times that we're supposed to hit and everything. I'm like, I'm just going to sit there and hope that I'm not talking when we need to go to a commercial.
Put it on that guy back there. He's got to hit it. It's all on Lucas. He's got to be the guy.
It is all on Lucas.
My goodness.
This is going to be, but no, this is part of what you were just talking about, TC. That's why I think the crosstalk is going to be a good thing. It's going to be a nice transition into our show, and also just always fun talking to you and Kenny and what you guys had to do. All right, 284-5966. You can tweet at us at KXNO Drive. When we get back, Heather's headlines. We're going to do Heather's top 2.
282-383-44.
There we go. All right, it's Drive with Heather and Sean on the Iowa Sports Radio Network.